So, hi, folks. This is Karen Trepte of Gaijin Works Coaching, your productivity coach. And let me tell you that copywriting has everything to do with time management. How many of you practically tear your hair out trying to figure out what copy to write, how to best communicate with your clients? Well, I have a super duper treat in store for you today. This is Lisa May. I didn't ask her how to pronounce her last name properly. Is it Huby?
Huby, yep.
Huby, okay. I have her on the line with us. I've been following some of her blogs and just really, really wanted to share this with you. So invited her to come on our interview series today. And first of all, we're just going to get to know Lisa May a little bit first as a person. We were talking about, should I call her Lisa or Lisa May? And I was saying how Lisa May is her preferred first name. It's like a beautiful Southern belle, which she is, obviously. So where did you grow up?
I am in Canada, so I'm about an hour north of Toronto, right in the snow belt.
So not too Southern.
Not too Southern at all, no. But I'm hoping to maybe make my way a little bit further south soon.
Okay, so how did you come up with such a Southern belle name then? There's got to be a story to that.
Just lucky. My parents, May is actually my mother's middle name and my grandmother's middle name. So it's kind of a family thing. And they wanted a two-part name, which for some reason that side of my family likes to gravitate to, which is fine. But it actually almost became Billy May at one point because my dad's middle name is William. So, I mean, it's a cool combination, but they thought it might be a little too Southern sounding for us Canucks up here. So,
Great. And then what got you into copywriting? We're going to fast forward a little bit from the date of your birth to what got you into doing copywriting?
Well, I've been in the marketing space for over 2 decades. I know it's hard to believe since I'm only 29.
I know, you look fabulous. Well, I read in on you that you do CrossFit, right?
I do, yes.
So very impressive.
So thank you. But yes, I've been in the marketing space for over 2 decades, and at one point for one of the corporations I was working for, I became involved more heavily in marketing communications. And that kind of piqued my interest. I've always been a kind of a spelling and creative writing kind of nerd that way. And so marketing communications was just a logical progression for me. So I got into copywriting. I love the whole human, the buyer psychology and persuasion behind all of it, and it's very interesting.
And quite complicated too. I mean, there's a lot of marketers on the internet these days, so quite a useful tool and quite competitive.
It is, yep, and it's there's lots of business coaches. I mean, the online space is so crowded, and certainly, there are tons of copywriters out there, and we all kind of have our own little niche and our own specialties. So my particular specialty is focused around sales copy, so it's sales pages, email sequences, and sales funnels, that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, I did read that this is what you're focusing on now, right? So for those new startup businesses that may be looking for a copywriter to do their blogs and so forth, that's not your marketplace.
No, that's correct. I don't do content copywriting.
Okay. So before we get into your specialty, do you mind sharing with us a little bit what you think for those starting out their businesses might be a good way to approach their content?
Certainly. The first thing you need to do is ditch any preconceived notion you have of what it means to sound professional. Because when you try to write professionally, you end up coming off sounding formal or stiff and stuffy. Okay, so your copy sounds robotic. So keep it conversational, right? Like you talk, just like, Karen and I are talking right now. Keep it very conversational. Just because it's easier to read or more conversational for your reader doesn't mean that you still don't sound professional.
Interesting. That's a really good tip. Really good tip. And do you have any other tips in terms of writing copy?
Oh, I've got a ton.
Well, we're listening.
But some 3 quick ways that you can instantly transform your copy, especially if you find that you do fall into, the stiff and stuffy robotic sounding copy. Use contractions, because when we talk, we're always using contractions. See, I just used it there.
Yep.
Let's see, what else? We can, avoid the big words. Keep it simple. Use the easier words. So things like, instead of instantaneously, use instantly. Okay, they mean the same thing, but you're using a $2 word instead of a $5 word.
Interesting. And then that comes back to sort of your notion of what you're teaching all of us about not worrying about sounding too professional, like whatever type of education we have, just let that go. And
that's right.
Try and communicate more simply.
Yes, because your communication is only effective if the person who's reading it actually understands what you're saying. Right. And if they're engaged with it, because if your writing is super formal, kind of, and you sound like an annual report or a legal document, your reader isn't going to stick around. So you want them to stay on the page and be engaged with what you're trying to tell them, so your message can be effectively received.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think I jumped in just as you were about to say something else.
No, it's okay.
So in terms of, those are great tips. Now let's get into your specialty then, which would be the sales pages, which is really the most complicated, I think, of all the writing. I would say is probably a great reason to hire Lisa May or hire a wonderful copywriter to help you with your sales page, because it really is an expertise all unto itself. And I'm always teaching, I love to delegate, and I'm always teaching to work really within our own zone of geniuses, which for me is not copywriting. And so what tips do you have for someone? Let's just start with this angle. Let's start with, why should they hire you? Why should they hire a copywriter instead of trying to figure all this out?
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say you shouldn't hire a copywriter until you've tried it yourself, because copywriting is one of the most profitable skills an online entrepreneur can learn, because when you're selling yourself, absolutely everything you write is copywriting. So whether it's a client email or a blog post, a sales page, or just a weekly newsletter type email to your list, it's all copywriting. But the good news is that copywriting is highly formulaic. There's a copywriting formula for everything. So that helps take a lot of the guesswork out. Once you get comfortable with your writing style and writing more conversationally, then you can start to dig in to using the words that your clients use all the time. So that's, you resonate with them more.
Okay, so you're telling us go ahead and do it ourselves first. Okay.
I would strongly encourage that, because then you, like I said, you get the experience of that, and then you start to understand kind of the ins and outs of what makes great copy versus not so great copy.
So where would we start?
When it comes to sales pages, there's, there are so many different variables involved, but a great place to really get started writing your sales page is to, first of all, make sure you're clear about your offer and what you're trying to sell. Okay, so have all the details ironed out around your dream client, so who you want to purchase this, all your offer details. Get into the benefits, because benefits are what people pay for, not, the one-on-one calls or the worksheets or the videos. Those are all your features, and they're great features, but you have to give people a reason to care about them. So the benefits will actually do that for you. And here's a quick way to write in a way that will really make your perfect client sit up and pay attention. And that's to create a swipe file of your client's language. Stalk them a little bit online. Where do they hang out? Do they frequent certain forums, blogs? Pay attention in the comments. Facebook groups, that seems to be the huge thing right now. So there are lots of opportunities to do research on your perfect client or customer, and you're not being nosy or anything, you're just doing some background research. So start to pay attention to the words and phrases and the terminology that they use to talk about their current situation and where they want to be. And do a copy paste, use Google Keep or Evernote, even just write it down and create your own client language swipe file.
I love that tip. I actually do have an Evernote started with taking some of that language, and it's so good for me to really know, like, what are the pain points of my customers.
Yep.
The testimonials serve as what they've gotten afterwards, but it's nice to know where they were before that and what kinds of benefits they're even looking for. And I think that applies across the board, whatever field you're in.
Yep.
Okay, so start with a swipe file. Start with figuring out what our client's ideal language is. Okay, now once we've gotten that, then what do? We go to mail.
Okay, so then it's, when you go to write your headline, you want to pull out some of those pain points. Now, a lot of people they don't want to go there. They think it's, they're going over to the dark side. I don't want to always talk about pain. The problem is you need to talk about the pain so you can present the better picture for people, because people always buy a better version of themselves. Okay, we all aspire and desire to be or do something else, something different from where we are right now. Right. So you have to dig into that pain a little bit. And that, by doing so, that helps the reader know that you really do understand them. So it shows that when you tell your story, you're empathizing with them, but by talking about their pain points, this really does prove that you understand that, where they currently are.
Great. Okay. All right. So we're putting that into our headlines. I assume we're putting that into our content as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then, so if we follow just a very simple sales page formula, let's say we're talking about AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, and action. Okay, so your headline, that's the attention getter. That's what makes people, sit up and pay attention, stops them from scrolling. Now, when we go into interest, this is more of the body copy. Okay, so you're going to talk more about where they can be. So you're going to paint that picture for them that's desirable. You're also going to tell about your story. So this is where you're going to empathize a little bit with them. Don't get too over the top with your story, though, because this is a sales page. You want to be focused on that. Your about page is a better place to tell more of your story than your sales page. So you just want to give them a little taste of it. And by this point, whoever lands on your sales page should have some idea of who you are, because you're going to get usually very little cold traffic to a sales page.
Right. Right.
All right, so they'll already have a pretty good idea of who you are and what you do. So you're just going to give them a taste of that to remind them. And then you're going to present your offer. So this is where you start to talk about the benefits and make it desirable to people. And then lastly is action. And that's your call to action. This is where you're going to ask for the sale. So, be direct, be confident in what you're selling. Because if you're not confident, people will see right through that. And it's often reflected in your copy because you might be wishy-washy with the language. You might be too vanilla or bland and it gets glossed right over. Mm. Or a lot of times people include kind of a backup call to action. They feel funny saying, click here to buy now, or whatever your call to action looks like. So they include a kind of a backup that says, but if you're not ready to buy, you can also click to book a free call with me. All right, so keep in mind, this is your sales page. Its purpose is to sell. So don't give a backup call to action. Keep it focused.
Okay, that's good information. So for example, what would you say to bring interest? Tell our audience a little bit more about you. Like, what would you use in your sales page for the interest?
Well, it's going to depend a lot on whether you're writing longer form copy or shorter, first of all. So here's a good rule of thumb, because I know a lot of people get confused as to when to use one or the other. So the higher the price or the higher the commitment that your buyer is going to have to make, then the longer your sales page is going to need to be.
That's a great rule. Yeah.
There are always exceptions to one or the other, but that's the best rule of thumb to go by.
Okay.
So if you have a $97 offer, then your sales page doesn't need to be a mile long usually.
Right.
So that's
$5,000, then you probably better back it up a little bit, right?
That's right.
Yes, right.
So when you're trying to bring someone in to your sales page and hold their interest, every line has a purpose, and that's to get the next line read. That's it. So there are a lot of copywriting tricks that I can get into and the techniques that we use to do that. But I mean, your readers don't want to become copywriters, so they don't need to know all this stuff. But the point is to hold your readers' interest. Make sure you're using their language and terms. Paint the picture of obviously what their life can look like. Okay, so remind them of where they are now. Remind them of where they could be, and incorporate your story here. Wrap all that with your story. So, tell people where you've been and what you've experienced and what you've learned from the experience. How has that all made you better and put you in the position that you're able to serve your client?
So we've got to come round at some point to why would they hire a copywriter?
Okay. When it comes to higher end launches, like VIPs, masterminds, e-courses, anything, say, that might require the longer form sales copy, that's a great time to hire a copywriter, because your perfect client, your reader, is going to make a larger commitment or be expected to make a bigger commitment. You want to make more money from that, and this is the perfect opportunity to bring in a copywriter that can help with the heavy lifting around that. We don't just do the writing of the sales page. We'll often help with the strategy behind your launch as well. So help you navigate through the sequence from your opt-in to your cart closing for your launch.
Right. Excellent. So in honor of your time, are there anything, other tips that you want to, well, before we do that, where can they reach you?
Oh, you can stalk me online. I'm on Facebook. I have a page there that you can follow me. I post there at least once a day. Sometimes I even do a live stream. Or you can find me at lisamayhuby.com, and that's spelled lisamayhuby.com.
Okay, and do they need a little hyphen in between or anything?
No.
No. So just Lisa and then May and then Huby.
Yep.
Okay. So any last tips that you want to share with our audience before we close this out, Lisa May?
Oh, gosh. The biggest thing I would say is when it comes to writing sales copy, be confident in what you're offering, because if you aren't, then the person you're trying to sell it to won't be either.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I really, really appreciate, and I'm sure our audience loves having you on here too. So we just want to thank you very much for coming on our interview show today.
Certainly, my pleasure.
Perfect. Okay, sending you tons of light and love. This is Karen Trepte, Guiding Works Coaching, your productivity coach. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.